Hello and welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm Patricia Kingston and I'm the Corporate Events Officer at Tourism NI. It's my great pleasure to welcome you along today for the latest in our series of Tourism Enterprise Development webinars. So today's session is called Taking Control of Your Business Finances, and we're delighted to welcome back Tony Harron from Admore Business Solutions. Some of you might remember Tony from last year's strategic pricing sessions, which he delivered as part of the TED programme, and today he's going to be sharing some insights with us on how you, as tourism and hospitality businesses, can start to take control of your finances by following some simple and practical steps. So if you have any questions for Tony at all during the session, just pop those into the chat during the presentation, and I'll be picking up as many of those as possible at the end, depending on how much time we have, because I know Tony has a lot to cover today. So welcome, Tony. Without further ado, over to you. I'll slip off here and lurk in the background, and thank you so much.
That's great. Thanks very much, Patricia. Much appreciated for the introduction. And good morning, everybody. I hope you're all well. And I'm not sure where you are at the moment, but you may or may not be facing a bit of snow. I certainly saw a bit of snow this morning, which didn't surprise me because of the weather forecast, but did surprise me a bit because I thought spring had arrived. But anyway, here we are. Thanks again for taking the time to join us on this webinar, Taking Control of Your Business Finances and How to Increase Your Profits. I'll be honest with you, this is a topic that is very close to my own heart, because I do spend a lot of time with small businesses, usually on a one-to-one, sometimes in workshops, training sessions, and webinars like this. And business finances is obviously an area that I specialize in, but it's also an area that many business owners struggle a little bit with. And they struggle a little bit with it, not only from the beginning of their enterprise, but even as they start to grow their business. So what I'm going to try and do today in the course of this 1 hour is to cover as much as I can about business finances and how you can take control yourself, and critically, how you can take control and use that to increase your business profits. We'll be doing a couple of polls very shortly. But I am conscious already that there is a really quite a broad range of small businesses on the webinar this morning, and different stages of your journey. I know there's some early starts, pre-starts, there's some existing established businesses, and from what I can see, a lot of businesses who have already begun the journey of getting their bookkeeping and finances sorted out. And what I would ask you though is, in the course of this, because I'm going to be covering a lot of ground, but I want you just to stop and benchmark just where you are individually as a business and a business owner against what I'm talking about. You may well have some of these aspects already covered, and that's grand. Just bank that and say, super, I've got that done. But the point I'm going to try and make is that you need to have all of these issues covered to take proper control of your business finances. So you may have parts of it covered, but I'm going to try and explain the importance of covering as many parts of it as possible to make sure that your control is as strong as it could be. So we'll make a start now. So what we're going to cover are what I have called 5 steps to taking control of your business finances. So I'm trying to structure this in a way that shows a bit of a journey, a bit of a step journey that you can take from the beginning to the end. And it may be, as you listen to what I'm saying and see what I'm showing you, that you're already past step 1 or past step 2, but as I discuss those areas, just make sure you've got those bits covered already. You may think it's all done, but just benchmark yourself and your organization to make sure that you have. So we have a couple of polls. The first one there is, what is your business structure? So I'd like you just to answer that. I just want to get a sense across the audience this morning, just what their business structure is. And you can see the 4 options: a sole trader, partnership, limited company, or something else. You may be a CIC, community interest company, or some other, maybe even a charity, or that might be a limited company. But if you could just do that, and we'll have a look at that. Okay. That looks like everyone's through. Okay, so over half sole traders, small number of people in partnership there, limited company making up a good third, and as I thought, there's nobody in something else. That's good. I just sometimes in these polls I like to put in an extra version in case somebody says, that's not me, I'm not in there. So that's good. So we've got a good range of structures there. So second poll now, what form of bookkeeping do you currently use? And I know you may have answered that as part of your registration for this webinar, but just if you could answer this again, there were a range of answers. This is now a bit more structured, put it into one of the boxes, so mostly paper-based, spreadsheet, cloud-based, or something else. Let's see how we get on with this. Okay, again, something else good. Nobody would have done that. I would have been curious to know what something else was, but because those three versions of bookkeeping, paper, spreadsheet, and cloud-based, form the basis of what I'm going to be covering as well as part of this webinar. Okay, so about a third were on mostly paper, and then we had quite a few already on cloud-based systems and some on spreadsheets. So that actually, to be fair, reflects what I generally find when I'm talking to small businesses. So let's get into the detail now. So really, what are business finances? So business finances covers everything, in my opinion, everything in your business that concerns money. Types of things we're talking about: your price of your products, cost of them, your sales income, direct costs, indirect costs, your profit, cash flow funding, taxes, and lots of everything else. So it's staff costs as well, it could be premises costs. So business finances is, and it also includes funding and borrowing and grants and all that sort of thing. So basically everything in your business has, I think, a financial impact. Even if you look at areas like logistics or marketing or premises or location, all of those different aspects of your business have an implication from a monetary perspective. And therefore, it is a really, really broad topic. So it being such a broad topic, trying to condense everything about business finances into an hour, it's just not possible. But I'm going to try and pick out the key elements to help you, as I say, take your steps towards trying to take better control. So the first thing I want to talk about is organizing your bookkeeping. So basically, bookkeeping is generally defined as the practice of recording, tracking your financial transactions. So at its most basic, bookkeeping is just a record keeping process. It is a record keeping process just to make sure that you're organized, but it also has a purpose generally. Bookkeeping main purpose generally is to provide information for your taxes. So that's why you keep your books, ultimately, to provide information for your taxes. Because when you do your tax return, or your accountant does your tax return, he needs information from your bookkeeping system or your records so he or she can complete a tax return. Typically, they need details on your income and details on your costs, and a bookkeeping system provides that readily. Why is it important? As I say, it does provide information for your tax return. Just put these up, you can see them. It provides record of your business transactions, sales and expenditure. So it's a way of keeping a record of what you sell, how much you sell it for, and what it costs you to buy or to make or to produce something, and also the details about your overheads and what it takes you to run your business, the cost to run your business. It also provides details of your business performance, and that's something I want to touch on now because later in the webinar, because it's okay having a good bookkeeping system, but you also need to use that bookkeeping system. And I find increasingly when I'm talking to businesses about their bookkeeping system, many do say, yeah, I've got a cloud-based system. But when I look into it, sometimes I get them to share it with me, or I go and sign into it. They're not fully utilizing it. So it's not just about getting a good bookkeeping system, it's actually using it properly. And properly means understanding what's in it and using that to review your business performance, see how you're doing, and find out what's going well and what isn't going well, and then try to improve that. Critically, it shows how much profit you're making. So a good bookkeeping system will show you that. I would challenge most people who have a paper-based system or a spreadsheet-based system to be able to show that from their bookkeeping system. And the reason being that they're not built for that. They're a manual or paper-based system or a spreadsheet-based system are good for keeping records and good to give to your accountant at the end of the year if that's what you do for your tax return or if you do it yourself. But beyond that, in terms of understanding how your business is doing, the sales trends, the cost trends, and the profit trends, basically, most of those, the manual and paper-based systems don't actually do that. Bookkeeping as well provides information for your tax returns, as I've said, and allows you to check on how much you're owed and how much you owe. So it does keep a track of the bills that you're due to pay, and the invoices, if you do invoice, that you're expecting to receive money from. So basically, it keeps you financially organized. So bookkeeping is really, really important. So I want to compare the 3 levels of bookkeeping. So the little poll we did earlier showed that there's a spread of people on the line who have a manual system, some have a spreadsheet-based system, and some have a cloud-based system, a branded system, as I would call it, with a Sage or Xero or QuickBooks, that type of system. But when I'm talking to businesses, certainly early stage businesses mainly, I analyze the business based on the bookkeeping system that they use in their business based on these 3 different levels, if you like. So at the very basic level, it is a manual and paper-based systems, and many businesses start off with a paper-based system, especially if they're just testing the water. They're just finding out about their business and can they sell what they want to sell, what it would cost them to do that, can they manage it, and it works perfectly well. And sometimes it's enough for the purposes of completing your tax return. I'll come back to the tax return bit in a moment, because there is something coming along the tracks, some of you may have heard of, that is going to change all that, something that's going to move people towards a more digital-based system than what you may have at the moment. So the mainly spreadsheet-based systems, they also are quite popular, and then the formal cloud-based systems, which is really what I'm going to be recommending that you consider, something that you think about for your business if you don't have it. And if you do have it, I'm going to be recommending that you make the most of it. And we'll be talking about those different stages, if you like. So we're going to look at each of those. Look at an example of what a paper-based system looks like, and not a big surprise. Lots of paper, usually printed bank statements, A4 ring binders with different things in them, maybe some tabs in them, boxes of receipts, pens and pencils, staplers, staple, paper clips, calculator, all very manual. And I say for a very basic business that's maybe just started up and maybe just trading, very early stage trading, probably okay to have something like that. But if you're genuine about growing your business and turning it into something that's full-time, or is something you want to grow because you're already full-time, I will be encouraging you to move up one of the levels as a minimum move and think about a spreadsheet-based system. But certainly I'm encouraging more and more businesses to think about having a cloud-based system, something that takes away all of the hard work for you. And usually the paper-based system reflects a business that's slightly disorganized around tax return time. Accountants, when they're doing tax returns, like to have good records. If they have to go through a bank statement and ask for receipts and what was this for. And I have come across some businesses who don't have a separate business account for their business, and I would encourage you, if you don't, to try and do that. You don't necessarily, certainly if you're a sole trader, you don't necessarily have to have a separate business account, but you do need to have a separate account, I think, just to keep the transactions in that account separate. So if money goes into that account or money comes out of that account, it's for your business. And your personal account, your shopping, your Tesco, your bills that you pay, all keep them separate. So I would encourage you to keep it separate, keep your personal and business transactions separate, especially if you're paper-based. If you're in a cloud-based system, you will be pushed into having a separate business account because they do link to a bank account. Spreadsheet-based system, on the other hand, looks a little bit more structured, a little bit more organized. I say it's sometimes a ledger-based template, and by that I mean you can get spreadsheet systems, and I've got some templates that I've used with some businesses to start them off, and it's got their dates down the left-hand side and rows across the top with all the transactions, so that they can actually allocate their costs across different things and their income across different things. So it is quite structured and organized. But more often than not, when I speak to people who've got a spreadsheet system and they share it with me, it's usually self-built. It's something they constructed themselves, or somebody has given it to them and they modified it in some way. Usually lots of formula in it. Sometimes there's colors, sometimes there's headings in it, and different tabs at the bottom. Sometimes people put their income in one, their costs in another, and they put other things. I've seen people with 8 or 9 tabs across the bottom, and they spend a lot of time filling those in. Usually standalone, it's not linked to anything else, so it's a standalone spreadsheet that people use for putting in their records and keeping a record of their business transactions. So it is generally more organized than paper for your tax returns, but it's prone to errors. So it is something that formulas can get overwritten. There can be problems with, adding things up and interpreting things. And so therefore it's not a perfect system, but again, it's probably a step up above a paper-based system. And if you're on a journey of starting your business out, it might be something to consider moving to. But again, I'm encouraging businesses to jump straight into a cloud-based system. But I want to show you the different ones because I'm conscious that today, there's some of you out there already have one of these types of systems, and maybe it worked extremely well for you. Why don't I talk a little bit about a formal bookkeeping system? So the likes of those brands you can see there, QuickBooks, Sage, QuickFile, Xero, FreeAgent, just a few. They're just examples. There's lots more out there. There's ClearAgent and Cashflow and ClearBooks and a whole range of different bookkeeping systems, and all of them serve a purpose. Those ones I actually use QuickBooks myself. I've been using it for many years, but I'm working with businesses at the moment who use Sage, other businesses that use Xero, and I myself in the past have used QuickFile. I will mention FreeAgent there just in passing, in that at the moment, if you've got an Ulster Bank business account or you open an Ulster Bank business account, they will provide a version of FreeAgent for you free of charge, as long as you maintain the account with them. So I'm just putting those up there. I'm not advertising any of them. I don't make commission on any of those, but I just want to put them up. And what a cloud-based system looks like, or a formal bookkeeping system looks like. You get digital records with a dashboard, and it's online. So by that I mean you've got a screen, it's got a dashboard, it'll usually summarize things like your invoices outstanding or your profit and loss or your bank accounts, and you can see it as an image, as a picture, as soon as you log into the system. Usually more professional, so you've got your logo on your invoice, you monthly customer statements, etc. And I see a lot of businesses, certainly those who use a spreadsheet-based system and those who use paper, if they do invoice for their services, then they have to separately have a Word document of some kind, or maybe some other little app that they send their invoices out on. So I've seen those linked into different sort of businesses who really what they do is they have a little app that allows them to send invoices, but that's all it does. Some of them are linked into some spreadsheet systems as well. But by and large, a formal bookkeeping system does everything for you. It does the bookkeeping. I'll talk about the other things here. Yeah, there's a direct link into your bank account with no manual entry. So paper-based systems, spreadsheet systems don't link to your bank account. Cloud-based systems do. And that's one of the biggest benefits of them, because you can link your bank account into your bookkeeping system. And what that will do is that will import all your transactions in digitally, live, real time. And they appear in front of you, and you just have to go in and allocate them. So you get your phone bill, you get your income, you go in and point it into the right account in your bookkeeping system. Again, if you're sitting there saying, well, I have a bookkeeping system and I have it linked to the bank account, I've met a few businesses recently and they've done that. One very recently who has he's got a Xero and he has linked it to his bank account, but he hasn't done anything with that. He's sitting at the moment with it was 859 transactions that he'd imported from his bank account, but he hadn't done anything with. So he did have Xero. He was paying his monthly fees for it. He had linked it to his bank account, but he wasn't. All the transactions that were appearing in the bank, he hadn't posted it into his bookkeeping system. He hadn't posted his income. He hadn't posted in his costs. He hadn't posted in his capital spend. Different things that he'd been doing. And therefore, he didn't have any information from the system. In fact, his transactions weren't even fully up to date. So, as I said at the start, moving through the journey of step 1 and step 2 and step 3, it's important just to you make sure you do each one properly. So there's no manual entry with the bank account, so less prone to error. You get accurate, up-to-date trading information. You get sales trends, comparison, profit and loss. You get stock control, depending on what system you have. So there's things that a digital bookkeeping system will do for you that a manual or a paper-based system just simply won't. There's less time spent inputting and more time to analyze your business finances. So that point really is that rather than keying information into a spreadsheet or putting it in a paper file or folder, if it's in your bank account, if it's come out of your bank account, it's brought into your system and it's there. You just need to allocate it, and then you can spend the time you might have spent manually inputting by reviewing what's in it. What was your profit? What was your sales figure? How are they trending over this quarter versus the same quarter last year? There's also the benefit of a small app that you can get on your phone. I'm not sure it's for every single cloud-based system, but certainly QuickBooks has one, Xero has one. I'm pretty certain Sage has one as well. And that app on your phone allows you to, for instance, snap receipts. So if you've got paper receipts from somewhere, $7.99, something that's spent on whatever, you can take a photograph of it through your bookkeeping system. That's uploaded to the cloud-based system. And if you paid for that from your bank account, so if you paid for it with a card from your bank account, $7.99 somewhere, you have a receipt for $7.99, you snap that receipt, that's automatically brought through into your bookkeeping system, and the receipt matches up with the expenditure. So you get a cloud-based record, really, and you don't need to keep the receipt anymore. I was asked very recently by somebody who asked me, they said they're actually snapping all the receipts, they're keeping them all, and they're being saved on their system, and they asked me, should they also keep the paper receipts? I did hesitate to say no, they shouldn't. I mean, it's my gut reaction. I don't keep my paper receipts, and I snap them, and I just have my faith in the cloud. But I know there's some people aren't quite as comfortable with the cloud, and by all means, if you want to keep your paper receipts, then you can do that. But you can also, by the way, if you have some like purchase invoices where people have sent you an invoice that you have to pay, you can also send that in some of these systems via email into your bookkeeping system, and it will automatically upload into your system. So it's a digital way of keeping your records, and a lot of it is done for you. So there's a process, really, if you like, that stops the manual input and the errors that can cause. So more control of your finances, including your cash flow, better prepared for your tax return. I mean, essentially, in a digital bookkeeping system or a cloud-based system, it generates your income, it generates your costs, so it generates your profit. And they're the three things you need for your tax return, all in there in the system. And you can look at it for, for your accounting period, for your year, and it's all there for you. It's online. Yeah, I just mentioned earlier about the process that's underway with HMRC, the tax authorities, and moving to a system, if you like, where businesses are going to be effectively forced into a digital bookkeeping system. So Making Tax Digital, I'll just put this up here, you can have a look at it. So it's part of the government's tax administration strategy. Effectively, it's already here for VAT registered businesses. So if you're out there and you're already VAT registered, you know all about Making Tax Digital, because Making Tax Digital is a process that HMRC they've started, and they're going to continue to develop to make small businesses bring their bookkeeping system into the digital framework that allows them to send their tax returns online. So at the moment, if you've got paper or spreadsheet, you go into a separate platform, a government gateway platform, you input all your details for your tax return, and that's submitted. That's not what happens with VAT. VAT is done from your bookkeeping system. So it's actually digital records are fed directly from your bookkeeping system straight into HMRC, and that's the way it's going with the income tax and corporation tax. VAT is already there, as I said, but income tax that which sole traders pay is also going forward into the Making Tax Digital system. So it was planned for April 2024, so it was actually planned for next year, and only recently in the last few months they deferred it. So they deferred it until April 2026, so it's still quite a while away. So it's not something you need to worry about today or tomorrow. But I'm arguing that it's not just a compliance issue, it's something you have to do. I'm saying you could benefit from having a system like that because you can get more information from it already. So it's not just about being ready for a tax return, but that is something that should spur you into at least thinking about it and planning for it. So April 2024 for self-employed businesses, limited companies, and I think there are certainly some on the line, limited companies Making Tax Digital. If you're VAT registered, you already have it for it, but the corporation tax end, there's no date set for that. And the reason they deferred the income tax for sole traders and that Making Tax Digital registration process is simply because HMRC themselves aren't ready, small businesses aren't ready, and accountants aren't ready for it. So they took soundings in the last 6 months and then decided it was just too much to ask. So there will be certain criteria for that in April 2026. So there will be some businesses that will be ineligible for it and that. But for now, just generally speaking, sole traders, April 2026, you need to be thinking about it. Okay, so I'll just put this up here. This is about step one, which we've looked at then, is about organizing your bookkeeping, getting something in place, and really how to make sure that you do something a little bit more than just manual paper and spreadsheet records. But all of these things here all need to be sorted out. And there are just so many things there for small businesses to worry about: receipts and customers compliance and sales and taxes and bills and all that sort of thing. Bringing it together into one place, like a cloud-based system, makes absolute sense. So strongly consider a cloud-based system. I will come back to that a little bit, because I do understand that some businesses who are certainly early stage think this might be a step too far, and they're entirely happy with their own system at the moment. There are also some businesses who are entirely happy to hand everything over to their accountant and let their accountant do everything. And again, there's nothing absolutely wrong with that, but I do think businesses, if you really want to control your finances, handing everything to your accountant to sort out for a tax return doesn't leave much control in your hands. So you really need to think about what you need to do to keep a bit of control, and a digital bookkeeping system allows you to do that, because you have control by looking at what's in that information, and you can give your accountant online access to it, so they can access the same information that you have. Okay, so yeah, just a little talk about how to choose your bookkeeping system, because quite often when I'm talking to people about the different versions, they say, well, how do I choose? I mean, what's the best system? And I've actually gone on a few one-to-ones with businesses, and I've just put up Google and put in cloud-based systems, or best cloud-based systems, or Xero versus QuickBooks, or Xero versus Sage, or Sage versus QuickBooks, or whatever. And you'll find lots and lots of information out there, and quite often you'll find that there isn't necessarily one absolute best system. Some businesses I've spoken to, who are on cloud, do like the system they've got, and others say they don't like it. So sometimes it's a bit personal preference. But here's some thoughts just for you. The first one is consider your skill set. What system is right for you? That takes me back to saying that if you're a sole trader particularly, and you're using paper or spreadsheet, and you think, what, a cloud-based system is a bit too much for me at the moment, then that's okay for now. But I'm saying, bear in mind that it will get to a point where you're going to have to think about a cloud-based system for your business. So then if you're choosing a cloud-based system, talk to your friends, colleagues, other business owners. So sometimes other people are using the system and say, oh, it's fantastic, or oh, it's great, or actually, no, it's not good. I don't really understand it. It's no good. So that's another way to do it, just to find out what other people are using. Check out some videos. There's plenty of videos on YouTube and bookkeeping websites that will explain what the bookkeeping systems do, and go and read the reviews, what people say about them. Like everything, you'll find reviews, some people saying absolutely rubbish, 1 star, and I would never use this system, and other people saying 5 out of 5, absolutely fantastic. So bear it all in mind, but certainly the mainstream, main cloud-based systems that I showed the brands up there earlier, they generally have good reviews. And so I've worked with businesses using all different versions of cloud-based system. And as I say to them all, they all do the same thing. They all keep a digital record of your bookkeeping, but they look a little bit different. I sometimes compare it to cars. The dashboard of a car, the dashboard of a Mini is going to look different to the dashboard of a BMW or a Merc or a Ford, whatever, or a Hyundai. So basically, the dashboards look different, but they all have the same functionality. But do check out the videos, see what people are saying about them, and actually see if you can see some screen shots of what they actually have. Read and analyze the reviews, compare, check out the costs. So cost is an issue. There are some free versions out there, like a QuickFile was free. I've certainly used free in the past, a free version of it. But it maybe isn't quite as functional and quite as user-friendly as some of the other versions. And there are others that start from £4 a month, £8 a month, £10 a month. Probably get a standard £10 plus VAT would be sort of a standard price for things. So if you divide that over the week, you're talking a couple of pound a week for cloud-based systems. So cost generally shouldn't be an issue if you're thinking about taking on a system like this, because the time you'll save will easily pay for itself. There's generally no contract cancelled at any time. It's not always the case, but generally the slight problem with that is if you get the system, you upload all your stuff into it, and you start using it, it's going to be very difficult to just take all that off and move to somewhere else. But Most of the cloud-based systems do have a transfer system. So you can, if you have your system on Sage and you want to go to some other bookkeeping system, you can actually go through the process of downloading all of your information into a file and then uploading it into the new system. So you can move between these. So you can move from QuickBooks to Sage or vice versa, or Xero to QuickBooks and vice versa. So there's different versions, but again, check that out. And finally, the one thing I always say is do check with your accountant. I am an accountant, I'm a chartered management accountant, but when I'm advising businesses about their bookkeeping, I always say just talk to your accountant before you choose the bookkeeping system that you want. Why do I say that? Because accountants have their own preferences at times. I know accountants who swear by Xero, others who swear by Xero, others who swear by Sage, and some who don't mind which version their clients use it because they're familiar with them all. And I do know some accountants, because I've come across business owners recently who don't know very much about cloud-based bookkeeping. They're a little bit behind themselves. And if you remember, I said earlier that Making Tax Digital was held back because accountants are one of the factors involved, that some of them are not ready to move on to a fully functioning digital bookkeeping system because they themselves aren't up to speed with it, and that's something to check out. But I do say, if you're going to think about a system, ask your accountant. If they've no strong preference, then go with the one that you want to go with yourself. If they do have a strong preference for something, then do investigate that and consider that, because if they're familiar with it, it'll be much easier. So that's step 2A with your bookkeeping. And then secondly, the step 2B, which is about setting it up. Again, I can ask questions about, well, how do you set up a bookkeeping system? I might want to choose QuickBooks or Xero or Sage or QuickFile or FreeAgent or whatever, but how do I actually set that up? Is it difficult and complex? And the answer is no, not really. You register online. You then just set up your business on the system. You go and add your business name, your address, email details. You create your invoices. There's usually templates within the system. You can go and create an invoice. You can upload your logo. You can add your products and services as well into it, and you can add your customers and suppliers. And in fact, you can upload your suppliers and customers, if you have a lot of those, via a spreadsheet or a CSV file. So if you have them in a certain format, you can upload them into the system automatically if you've got a lot. Otherwise, you can do it manually, and it doesn't take that long. So step 2 here, and the third stage, if you like, of setting up your bookkeeping system is to link your bank account and import your transactions. So that's one of the most important aspects of a cloud-based system. So being able to link your bank account to it and be able to see those transactions on a screen, and then be able to apply those or post those to the appropriate account within your bookkeeping system. And so it's really important to bank and then allocating them into your bank account. And then we'll move it on to the next stage after you've actually done all of those, which we're going to look at once you have a bookkeeping system set up, how you actually use it. But I want to just talk a little bit about a real live business that was involved in this. Again, what I've been going through there, a little bit of theory, a little bit of best practice, etc. But just to explain what happened. One business was a small sole trader business who had a paper-based system, receipts, all the things we talked about earlier about things that they had that were manual, paper-based. They didn't have any budgets. I'll talk a little bit about budgets as well. In terms of the importance of budgets, that's again one element of taking control of your finances. We'll talk about that later. And tax return time was busy and stressful, so they did engage and they did speak to their accountant, and they looked up different versions. They actually went with QuickBooks, except for it could be any of the systems. Afterwards, what they had in their business, or what they experienced in their business, after the cloud-based system was set up, the direct bank link was in place. There were no manual entries. They were able to review their monthly profit and loss account, something they'd never been able to do in the past. They had full visibility with their sales and costs, so they were able to go in and interrogate the system, if you like, and look into various line items of sales, costs, overheads, what the charges were, and look at the trends within that. And again, we'll cover that shortly. They also developed an annual budget, and they tracked it. Now, some bookkeeping systems have an inbuilt budgeting system within them, so there is a way that they can create a budget for you. In each of the Cloud-based systems, certainly there's different packages. There's a very basic package, and then they build up into higher packages, and they cost more. And usually you'll find that the budgeting system is in some of the higher packages. Now, they're not absolutely necessary for every business, but I do think that to take control of your business finances, having a budget, an annual budget, a little bit of forecasting is a good way to do that, to take control, to have a little bit of a plan as to where you want the business to go and grow. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. So having an annual budget and tracking it is good. You may be able to do it through the digital bookkeeping system, depending on the package you have, or you can build it up separately. There are separate templates for forecasting and planning. The accountant has had direct access online, so the accountant was able to go straight into the bookkeeping system and see exactly what the business owner could see. They were able to go in and look at things. So if there were any queries, the business owner could pick up the phone, send them a message, and they could both look at it, and the accountant could go and investigate and go back to, I see what you've done there, here's what you need to do to correct it, or I've just corrected it. So they had that direct line support. And ready for their tax return months ahead. So the point of this, as well as the way the tax return system works typically, is that after the tax year ends, you typically, if you're a sole trader, self-assessment, when the tax year ends on the 5th of April, you have until the 31st of January the following year to complete your tax return, which is, 9 months to get it done. And a lot of businesses think about that as being why they're getting their accounts ready. They've got to get their accounts ready for their tax return, but they've got until 9 months later to get it done. But with a bookkeeping system that's digital, you can have your information ready within days and weeks, really, of the year end, because it's all in the system already. So it means you're going to be well prepared, well in advance of tax return, and you don't have to leave it until the last minute and get things done. So really, there's a big benefit of that, and this company did experience, a small business did experience this, and obviously reduce stress on the back of it as well. Okay, taking step 3 now. So step 3 is really about, let's imagine you've taken step 1, looked at different bookkeeping systems, you've chosen something, you're onto the treadmill, if you like, or the process of actually running your bookkeeping system. And this is where I do find some businesses are a little bit less diligent than they should be, in that they may have taken the first steps, got their bookkeeping system, set it up, but they're not using it right. So a couple of businesses I met recently, and they're using it only for sending invoices, and that's it. Yet they're paying the full monthly subscription for that. And I'm saying, well, that doesn't make sense. You've got to think about all the extra things that it can do for you in terms of management information, giving you information on your trends in your business, etc. So therefore, as a minimum, you would send your invoices, and you can send reminders and bank statements. That's if your business is an invoicing type business. I appreciate some of you on the webinar this morning maybe have some sort of business that isn't invoice based. People maybe who book online, pay online, and they don't have to invoice anybody. But for those of you who do have to invoice, you can invoice, you can send reminders, you can send them statements, and it's a way to manage your cash flow, because you can manage it by sending reminders on a regular basis to businesses digitally, just online, quick email to people to say, hey, thanks very much for your business. I haven't got your payment yet. Could you let me know when it's going to be paid? No printing and posting. So again, if you've got a non-cloud-based system and you've got a separate Word-based system, then you're going to be running a process of typing up your invoices and then sending them, or posting them, or handing them into people if that's the way you operate. The benefit of the linking your bank account is that if you do issue invoices to people, both your supplier and purchasing, or supplier and sales invoices, that when the money comes into your bank account, it will automatically find the invoice and match it off. So it does a lot of the work for you. Just put these up now so you can see them. So you reconcile your bank account at least weekly. If you've got employees, you can set up payroll. Again, I've met businesses who have a bookkeeping system and they have staff and they operate a separate payroll system. And again, that's okay, operating a separate payroll system, but within these digital systems, there's a payroll option within it. Again, you pay a little bit more, usually maybe £1 or £2 per employee on a monthly basis, but you can set it up within the bookkeeping system. And some businesses I've spoken to have looked at this as a way to take back the management of their payroll, and they're taking it on themselves through their bookkeeping system rather than paying some outsourced system, Others are quite happy to keep it separate. You don't have to bring in your bookkeeping system, but it does give you a little bit more control. If you're managing the payroll, you're running the payroll, you're taking all the ownership of that. So yes, it's used for your VAT return digitally, and it's going to have your information ready for your tax return a lot earlier than you would have if you had a manual or paper-based system. We've talked about making tax digital. Yeah, and I talked a little bit about, again, using it as a basis for forward planning and forecasting. So really important to think about your business in terms of where it is today and where it's come from, but equally as important to think about where you want it to go and be able to analyze your business performance by looking at your bookkeeping and your information on sales, profit, loss, costs, all that there allows you to think a little bit more clearly about your business and where you want to take it. Quick look at another case study. This was a larger business now. A quick background here. They had 3 different businesses in the group, so quite a large enterprise. They were pretty much devastated by COVID. The cash flow dried up. They were under pressure from the bank and other creditors. They did have a cloud-based system, which was QuickBooks. Used it mainly for invoices. It wasn't linked to the bank account. They didn't issue statements to customers, so they were really underutilizing it. And I was speaking to them about how to make more use of it, because they were actually, just put these up now, just put this up. See all these. So yeah, they didn't have any management information. So by that I mean they didn't have any reports, as I say, profit loss account or trends. And yet the bank were asking for that information, because the bank, they had to they took out a bounce back loan, which was available at the time, but they also had other debts and other leasing commitments, etc. And the finance companies were asking for management information on the business, how it was trading. And obviously during COVID, it wasn't trading very well, but they were still asking for up-to-date trading information, and this company couldn't provide it. So they were unable to provide the information that the bank was looking for, and other creditors who they were saying, look, could we hold off on payments for a while and we'll pay you so much a month and whatever. They were coming into arrangements with them. So really they were under that amount of pressure, and they did owe quite a lot of money to creditors. On the other side of it, they also were owed money by certain businesses who hadn't paid them, who themselves were going through difficulties during COVID. So they were under pressure. And afterwards, the owner, the director, embraced the use of QuickBooks. We went through what was involved in it and very quickly got a grip on it. Obviously, he was reasonably financially aware at the time, and he made a decision that he was going to get involved in it. He was going to look at it from a business owner's perspective, and he got really stuck into the making full use of it, because he needed to produce some set of management accounts at the bank and other creditors who were looking for it. He set up his BankLink. He got all his records up to date. He got his management information. He then organized himself around that. So taking control for him meant that he was now going to set up a regular board meeting in the business, and he was going to have regular meetings. And for the regular meetings, he was now going to have the availability of regular financial data that allowed the business to start analyzing what they were doing, allowed the business to think about their performance and how they were doing. So this was a sea change for this organization. The bank had re-engaged and the debt was restructured. So he was fortunate he was able to produce information. The information he produced wasn't great because he hadn't been performing well, but it allowed him to use that as a basis for producing forecasts and a bit of planning. He said, look, here's where I've come from, here's where I am today, and you know what? Here's what I'm planning to do. Here's my forecasting. Here's the sales I'm going to make. Here's the marketing I'm going to do. Marketing that I'm going to do to support that. Here's the cost that I'm going to incur. You know, it was all of that there became a lot more clear because he had the information on which to base his forecasts, and that helped him to convince the bank and his other creditors that he was credible. And jobs were secured just finally, because there were jobs at risk in the business, and that was a difficulty for him because he was very conscious of that. But he needed to understand, you know, his profitability. He needed to understand his viability and whether the business itself was actually going to survive, but he was determined to make every effort to try and do that, and getting his bookkeeping system, getting his financial information together and taking a bit more control over his outlays and his income, and things that really made a difference to his bottom line, did make a difference to his business, and he did manage to turn it around. Okay, we're going to go quickly into a poll 3 here now, and this is really about your own financial information in your business. And I'd just like to know if you could answer that, how often you review the information, the financial information about your business, just to get a sense of that. And the response is usually quite well spread. And it is. Okay, so a good proportion, just over a third, are reviewed monthly, and there's another third, so maybe between that 3/4 in total, review it at least quarterly, and that's very, very good. Annually, 19%, 5%, I don't really review information in my business. Okay, and to be honest, that they may be early stage or whatever, but the point is you have to review your financial information regularly. I suggest that you should be reviewing your information on your business a minimum every quarter. And for some businesses, certainly larger businesses, I recommend that it should be done monthly. And if you're a part of a corporate structure and you've got a board, then the board should be reviewing that information on a monthly basis. I was on a board of a charity for about 8 years, and I was the chair of the finance subcommittee, and we would have had a monthly meeting, and there was finance was always a topic, and there was always a financial report produced, and we always reviewed our actual figures against our budget figures, and we also reviewed our historic trends and things like that. So really important, depending on the size of your business. If you're just a sole trader or you're in partnership, do find a way to review the information on a regular basis. And I'll talk a little bit about what the information is you need to think about as well. So I'll just put these up. Yeah, so this is step 4. Now, how to analyze your business information. So really, I'm suggesting you analyze information under these areas. So sales trends, cost, profit, cash, and budget trends. Analyzing business performance is generally about trends in your business. So how your sales are increasing or decreasing, how the mix of your sales product or services are changing, how it's more of this year than it was last year, about your costs, about your overheads, and then obviously about your profit. So all of those are about trends, and that's what you should be looking at in your business. I'll just put these down. You can have a quick look at them. It just gives a little bit more detail. So under your sales trends, you're looking at last year to date, maybe against this year to date. So, first 2 months of last year, January, February, what were your sales like? First 2 months of this year, what are they like? And why has there changed? That's the sort of information you're looking for. You may get that from manual or paper information, but typically you'll get that again, more likely from a cloud-based system. You can look at your product and service income split. So you might say, 100% of my income or 50% of my income last year was in product A. This year, so far, it's only 25%. So what's the reason for that change? And just understanding that. So that helps you to analyze your business and understand it a bit better. Sale and costs, comparing this quarter against last quarter, quarter 1 last year against quarter 1 this year. And same on profit, exactly the same sort of comparisons you'd look at. Cash trends as well. A lot of people sort of manage their business based on what's in the bank. Not a bad idea at times, but I would also say that it can be dangerous just relying on your bank solely. But keeping an eye on your bank and knowing what's in that and what has to go out of that is important. But again, you can do that from your bookkeeping system, and you can do that when you've got a budget in place. Some budget trends are important. Not many small businesses I find do budgeting, but those that do find it very valuable because it gives them a sense of putting out a little pathway to where they want to go. So if your turnover is at 100 grand this year and you want it to be 125 next year, setting out a budget and how you might achieve that will make it more likely that you will get there. Step 5 is really about regularly reviewing it. So the last one was about step 4, about how you do it, how you analyze it, and how you review it. But it's important to do it regularly. And I'm saying there you need to have the information to review it. So if you don't have the information available to you, it's going to be very difficult to review it, certainly in any great detail. So having the information from a cloud-based system or something else will allow you to do that. I would also suggest that if you're thinking about reviewing your business performance, you extend it a little bit beyond finance. You also look at things like, number of visitors, number of people who stayed overnights, a percentage of people who spent an average of £20 in your restaurant or whatever. It's other information as well as just pure income, costs, and profit. So you could build in like what I would call like a management information pack and review all that together. So set up a regular review process. Yeah, there's a bit of the management pack, which is broader than pure finance. You should think about other information that would be really relevant for your business. So yeah, I'd suggest if you're a sole trader, do try and find somebody that you can regularly review your information with, be it a partner or a family member or an advisor, even your accountant or a mentor or colleague or friend, somebody you could talk to and say, can I go through this with you? Because I want to talk about it. Here's what's happening, or I think is happening, and here's what I think I might want to do about it. Again, set up budgets annually, and you can track those against actuals. So really important that you've got sort of a plan ahead. Just a couple of quick slides here on extracts. These are extracts from QuickBooks to tell you the type of information that's available within those. If you operate Sage or Xero or some other form of cloud-based system, then you'll have something different. But that's just an example. I know it's very small. You'll probably be able to examine it on the slides afterwards or on the presentation. But that's just a set out of a budget and actual profit loss account. So really what that is the system does it for you. If you have a budgeting application within the bookkeeping system you buy, then you can look at your actuals or put in your actuals, which are all mostly automated, and set them beside your budget, and this will do an explainer as to what's on budget, what's out of budget, what the variance is, and give you an immediate opportunity to review what's happening in your business. So if you have that option within your bookkeeping system, do make use of it. That's another little list just of the types of reports that you can get. There's reports by customer location, there's reports by product, by service, all sorts of things. There's pages of information that are automatically available to you within a cloud-based system that you typically won't get from a spreadsheet or manual system. So I just go back to that last one. Example 3, yeah, it's just more of the same. There's more information available to you, and you can choose what information to look at. So you can go in and set up a little management pack from that as the type of information you would like to review. And the important thing is then you can review that either online or print it out and review it regularly. So at least quarterly, probably preferably monthly. I know some businesses I've seen in the registration process do it weekly. That's absolutely fine. But at least make sure you do it on a formal basis every quarter, and probably best to think about doing it on a monthly basis. Okay, towards the end now, just to outsource or not, some people I know sort of favor giving all this to their accountant. That's their job. I couldn't be bothered with finance. Oh my goodness, that's just too much for me. And I can understand that, because some people want to concentrate on their business and they want to give that to somebody else, or they have a bookkeeper to do it. And that's, again, okay. It depends on yourself. The cloud-based system gives you a little bit more opportunity to take more control, a little bit more ability to understand what's going on in your business, rather than giving it all out to somebody and then they tell you what's happening. Because traditionally you would have done your accounts, given your bookkeeping records to your accountant, they would have done up your accounts, called you and said, do you want to know how you did last year? We're moving away from that. Businesses have now more control over that. You should be looking at your information right throughout the year so you can see what's happening in your business, and a cloud-based system allows you to do that. If you have another way of doing it through your spreadsheets, that's absolutely fine, but just keep an eye on making tax digital. So I say delegate and don't abdicate. That's an important message. Oh. So, yes, supporting resources. There are 3 supporting resources for this webinar. The first one is how to review your business performance. So I've set out a little summary of the things you can look at to go in and review your business performance. The second one is the 5 pillars of good business finances. So there's a self-test option, and I talk about the 5 pillars of good business finance, from bookkeeping and accounting, and it's a way to self-test yourself against, so just to see how you match up against them. And then I've also put together a little 20 top tips on how to manage your cash flow. Some people ask me about things like, how do you sort out your tax? How do you make sure you've got the money to pay your tax? So I've got a couple of tips in there about how to do that, because tax comes in big lump sums at times of the year, and sometimes businesses have spent that money on something else, or because they haven't tracked their profit, they don't know what profit they're going to have, they aren't actually sure how much tax they're going to have to pay, so they're unaware of it until sometimes the bill arrives. So those tips should be available. I'm not sure if they're up on your website yet. Patricia might be able to tell us after that, after this here. So summary of the 5 steps: organize your bookkeeping system, make sure it's fit for purpose, select and set up your cloud-based system. You'll need to do it sometime because of Making Tax Digital. Use your bookkeeping system fully, desktop, mobile, analyze and interpret your business performance to improve it, and set up regular reviews of your business performance. And use the management pack to do so. And that is the end of the webinar. So I'm happy to hand back to Patricia, and hopefully she can give some information on the resources.
Thank you so much, Tony. Lots and lots of information there, and I know we've done the full hour near enough there, but we do have quite a few questions in. So if any of you can hang on with us for a few minutes, we'll try and get through as many of those as we can here this morning, and we'll maybe do a little follow-up afterwards with anyone who has a bit of a question, just in case anyone does need to nip off and doesn't get their question, because we've had a lovely flurry, but that's good, Tony. It means everyone was paying attention as well.
Oh, good.
So thank you so much.
I can never tell. I can never tell. So that's good.
And just a reminder to everyone who's joining us today, we've been recording this morning's session, so you can watch it again. If there's anything that you wanted to sort of look at in a bit more detail, you can watch this recording, and we'll also be sharing a PDF of the slides from today online, along with the resources that Tony mentioned. We'll have all of that available later on today, and the guys from Eventful will share a link to those with you whenever that's ready, along with the recording from today. So keep an eye on your inboxes for that. So there's also I always say this, but we've sent a little evaluation after today's session. I'm really grateful if you can fill that in as well. It only takes a few minutes, but it means we know if we're on track with the topics that we're covering, and it also means that you have a little opportunity. There's some free text boxes. You can let us know what else you'd like to hear a bit more about, if you want to hear a bit more on the finance side or any other topics at all. Just before we get stuck into the questions, actually, I'll do a couple of very quick live polls. As long as you're not all polled out today. I know Tony had a few questions for you during the session, but the first one will pop up on the screen here for you. It's just, how would you rate today's session in terms of content and relevance to your business? So that's with 1 being not relevant at all and 5 being extremely relevant. So I'll just give you a second to select one of those. Great stuff, thank you. And the second is just a very simple yes or no question, and that's, do you plan to take any action within your business as a direct result of what you've heard from Tony today? I think based on the questions that have been coming in here, quite a lot of you have lots to think about, so that's fabulous. Thank you. Let me just whiz straight into the questions. And if anyone does need to shoot on, we totally understand. But if you've posed the questions and you're burning to hear the answer, hang on for a few minutes, and I'll not keep you too long. So thank you so much, Tony. We've got a few questions around the cloud-based system. So don't want to put you on the spot, but a few people are asking about sort of what would be the most user-friendly of the cloud-based system, or someone who is looking for really what's the most basic option. They've maybe had a go before and have struggled. So I mean, I don't know, is there any advice that you can give on or I know it's personal preference, and what someone finds easy, someone else can find tricky. So I'm putting you on the spot a little bit there.
No, that's fine. I mean, I'll be honest with you, there are hundreds of cloud-based systems available, and HMRC have a section on their website that has recommended software or cloud-based bookkeeping options that would be appropriate for Making Tax Digital. So you'll find the likes of Sage and QuickBooks and Xero and QuickFile and all of that on that, and a whole range of ones I've never even heard of. So lots and lots of different systems. So very difficult to pick one out and say it's the best. I can't say I use QuickBooks. I've been using it for about 15 years now, maybe more. I used to use just a package that I uploaded to my system, and it wasn't cloud-based. It didn't link to the bank and all that. But I moved onto the cloud about 5 years ago and never looked back myself. Some people might say, well, of course you would say that, Tony. You know, if you can't convince yourself to use a cloud-based system, then who can you convince? But it's helped me to understand it and then helped me to explain it to people. In terms of picking one out, I am always reluctant to do that, but I will say that Sage has been around for a long, long time. And I know there's a lot of Sage users on the call or on the webinar this morning. I mean, I will say I did start off, and the very first system that I used was Sage, and I bought it. This is how long ago it was in Dixon's, if anyone can remember. Dixon's in a little box, and bought it and got it in, and that's the one for me. There was very little alternatives at the time, but I found it just very big and cumbersome for my business, and I then moved on to that package of QuickBooks that I used, and I found it much more friendly. And then I moved on to the cloud, and that's it. So I'm not knocking Sage at all, and Sage have moved on a lot from where they were. Sage tends to be used by much larger businesses, but there are some smaller businesses as well who can use the Sage Sage 50 or Sage Cloud. So there are different versions. I mean, I would suggest that if you want to be able to narrow it down, go onto the internet and have a look at like cloud-based systems. Do Xero versus QuickBooks versus Sage, and you'll get all these little blogs and opinions on it, and they'll take you through the different functionalities. And one of the functionalities is user friendliness, and they will rate it, and they will give a score, and they will say this one wins it. So you'll find that if you go into one of those blogs, you'll find there's they'll compare all these things. You'll get all these ratings and scores. And one of them will be user friendliness or ease of use or whatever. But you might find that there's one other part of it, maybe dashboard look or whatever, and it's not as good. And you get into that whole big, what I call like a big minefield of, big chasm of stuff on the internet, and then you get a little bit lost. But if you keep it at a high level, just go in and get an understanding of those systems. And I would say to people, what I said during the webinar, do ask other people what they use, and ask them what they think of it. Somebody you know, another colleague or somebody in business, and say, what do you use? What system do you use? What do you think of it? And they might even show it to you. They might even be, as long as they're not too worried about confidentiality, they might show you what it looks like. And that's a way to find out. So to narrow it down, take a few systems, go in and compare them, and then talk around, ask people what they use, and try to narrow it down. They are all, Xero, QuickBooks that I use quite a lot. They are very good, and again, I'm not recommending them. I don't make commission out of any sales or anything, but they would be a good place to start, but there are lots of others as well.
Okay, thank you. And sticking with cloud-based systems just for a minute, someone was wondering, is it possible to record cash transactions on a cloud-based system? And is there a way to categorize purchases between stock purchases and then other items? Is that possible within cloud-based systems to split in that way?
Well, I'll take the cash first. Yes, there is. So if you, for instance, have a cloud-based system and you have a business bank account and you go into a shop somewhere and you buy something for £20 in cash, you spend your money, or you pay a supplier in cash, that won't find its way to your bank account. But the way you do that in the system, without getting too technical, is you create a journal entry. It is quite simple. You just go in and there's a journal option, you go and hit it, create it, and you just create an entry that says cash paid £20, item for stationery or for supplies or something like that, and that is created in your bookkeeping system. The cash is treated as money you've introduced to the business, so the business owes you that £20 if you pay it by cash. So basically, you could go in to your bank account and take that £20 back out the next day, but it's then recorded on your system. So I hope that makes sense. But there is a way of getting cash items through into the cloud-based system. That means it forms a part of your actual transactions. And what was the second one about stock?
It was, how can you categorize purchases between stock and other items? Now, I'm not sure what they mean by other items. Maybe that's more like services as opposed to physical stock?
Yeah, well, most basic bookkeeping systems don't have a stock management system in them, but you would get maybe a more expensive package that would have a stock management system. And some systems don't have their own stock management system, so some cloud-based systems don't have their own, but they have like a bolt-on little stock management system you can add on as an extra app onto your bookkeeping system, and that manages your stocks. In other words, if you're selling items which are out of your stock, it will identify those items, and it will automatically reduce your stock. You have 20 in stock, you've sold 5. Once you say to the system, we sold those 5, and that's a sale of 5, it'll reduce your stock by 5 and it'll bring it down to 15. And if you bring stock in of 20, it'll bring it back up then to 35. So it's a stock management system within some of the systems you can use. How you would identify items that are stock or non-stock items, I'm going to guess that that's to do with if you're purchasing something and you're paying for it and it's stock, and or you're purchasing something and paying for it and it's not stock, it might be stationery or something disposable you're going to use. The stock item usually, or the purchase item usually finds its way into an account called cost of goods sold or purchases.
Okay.
And that forms, I don't want to get too technical, but basically it finds its way into a different part of your profit and loss account. You've got your sales, you've got your cost of sales and purchases, and then you've got all your overheads. But when you take your sales and then you deduct from that your cost of sales, what it takes you to make something, that's your gross profit. So just the bookkeeping system distinguishes between items that are items bought for stock and are being sold as part of your business, and items that are bought and paid for that are actually disposable items like stationery and insurance and telephone costs and rent and rates, things that are just being used up at the time. So I'm not sure if that answers it. I'm happy if they want to follow up with you, Patricia, afterwards in an email, just to, if they wanted clarification. I'll leave that with them. If that answers it, that's great. If it didn't quite answer the question and they want to clarify it with you afterwards, I'm happy to pick it up if that's okay.
Absolutely, that's perfect. I think maybe you've touched on this. Someone was saying, what's the cheapest way of purchasing a cloud-based system? I suppose if you want to start out and you don't want to have a major outlay, but I suppose in a way it would be going for maybe the most basic version to start with, and then I know you mentioned there's different bolt-ons and different costs, but I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, the cheapest way to purchase a cloud-based system is to buy one of the ones that are free. And one of the ones that I've used in the past, and I think it is still free, is QuickFile. So QuickFile is out there. You can register with them for nothing, and you can go in, and it gives you pretty good functionality around a cloud-based system. So if cost is an absolute issue for you, then you can do that, and it will still link to your bank account. It will bring the transactions over. It'll allow you to post. It'll has management reports, profit and loss accounts, balance sheets. It has sales information and cost information you can drill down into it. So it has all the functionality of the others. It may not have as attractive a dashboard, with little pie charts and things like that in it. Just taking a step above that, you can go into the likes of QuickBooks again, because I'm most familiar with it. But the starter pack or the starter package for QuickBooks is around. The last time I looked, a week ago, it was like £3 a month, £4 a month. That was discounted now, so they tend to offer a discount of maybe 75% or 50% off for 3 or 4 months. But it's sort of for a sole trader, that would be. So for a basic sole trader package without discount, £8 maybe plus VAT, so around £10 a month. Again, £2.50 a week. But if it cost is the absolute issue, and you want a cloud-based system, you want to pay nothing for it, the likes of QuickFile, and there will be others out there. I just happen to know about that because I actually used it myself for a separate business for a while, and I found it functionally good enough. But if I had to choose between it and paying it some money for QuickBooks, I'd definitely stay with QuickBooks. But if it's pure cost cheapest, then that's what I suggest have a look at, or just go and Google it. Just do free bookkeeping systems and go out there. And again, before you pick it, look up reviews, see what people say about it, see how functional it is, and does it do everything you want it to do.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a question here from someone who's running an Airbnb, which is alongside their home, and they're just wondering, is it possible to offset their mortgage against the business, and also then if it was sold, how is capital gains tax calculated in that instance? So I know that's quite a specific one, but there could be some people in a similar situation. You know, we have a lot of Airbnbs now, so I don't know, is there any advice? I suppose the short answer advice, and maybe we can follow up directly with this person as well, just given our time today.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, obviously, as you say, there's a lot of people in the Airbnb sector now. It used to be the case, I think up to 2017, that you could offset the interest on any mortgage that was specifically business related against your income or your rental income from your property. And that changed in 2017 and it was phased out, I think, over about 5 years. So currently there is a system where you do get some tax relief on the interest, but it's more complicated. So there's like 3 criteria they use, and it's the less of one of 3 things, one of which includes 20% of your interest costs. So I don't want to get too technical, because if I do, everyone else who's listening will go, oh, not something I'm interested in. But I know it's important to the person. So the quick answer is, it's not as straightforward as offsetting your interest bill against your business. And it also depends on if your Airbnb is integral to your property or it's a standalone property with a separate cost structure, and it's a separate building that could be sold. It could be sitting in could be an apartment, or it could be a house somewhere. If it is, then capital gains tax is applicable, because capital gains tax is not applicable to your primary main residence. So there's no capital gains tax that it would be payable if you sold your primary home, provided it's not used for commercial purposes. If you have an Airbnb and it's part of your residential property and it is used for commercial purposes, then, or part of it is used for commercial purposes, then there is a capital gains tax implication. And I would suggest that you probably do need to speak to an accountant about that, because there would have to be calculations done. I mean, typically it would be trying to work out what portion of it is commercial, what portion of it's residential, and there may be a pro rata application or calculation of the capital gains tax, depending on how much of it is used or for business and how much is personal. But there is a capital gains tax implication.
Okay, thank you so much. And we've got a self-catering query here as well, Tony, hopefully you can help with. So in this instance, it's someone who has a self-catering accommodation business, but then expand to 2 or 3. But each of the self-catering properties are run separately. So there's a separate standalone bank account for each. So if you were going for a cloud-based system, would they need 2 or 3 separate cloud-based systems to run them as 3 separate businesses, or not? Is there a way to combine that whenever they're all? It sounds like all 3 are sort of run as almost as 3 separate standalone income businesses.
It would, if they've got 3 separate bank accounts and they're running separately, but they're still under the ownership of the business themselves, then they could probably be run from the one bookkeeping system. If somebody wants to treat them as 3 separate entities, if you like, they could set them up under separate bookkeeping systems to show the profitability of each, to show the income coming in, cost going out, and they could manage them separately. There may be an extra cost in that, but I know that you can. Some of the bookkeeping systems allow you to sort of have different companies, organizations under the one sign-in. You can sign in as the owner and then set up business 1 and business 2 and business 3. So you can look at them, and they would, within that structure, have separate profit and loss accounts, separate balance sheets, and that. The alternative is to have it as one single business. Again, I'm not sure the exact structure there, but one single business that has 3 different properties. And you could set those properties up as separate income lines, and you can show those coming into your bookkeeping system as income from property A, income from property B, income from property C, and even your costs. You can actually set up your costs to be tied, if you like, to property A or property B or property C, where you can do that. And that in itself allows you to do a little bit of interrogation or a little bit of analysis of your business performance across those. So it would depend. Again, probably a question for the accountant who's dealing with that. and it would depend if the person is doing 3 separate tax returns at the end of the year for 3 separate businesses that are all run differently, albeit under the one ownership. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that answers it. So if it doesn't, again, if they come back and there's something different, they can maybe clarify that.
Absolutely, you can feel free to follow up on a question there, or even if you want to just type, whoever submitted that, if you want to type into the chat, if you'd like a bit more information, then we can follow up directly afterwards. In the interest of time, I'm going to do one final question, Tony, and I know there's a few other people have submitted, so we will aim to come back to everybody with some sort of a response as soon as we can. But this is, I suppose, in relation to what you were talking about everyone going digital. Is there any kind of software add-on that you could use with Excel that would be acceptable for HMRC to count as being tax digital? Is this someone who uses Excel on all their income and expenditure, and it's reported directly from the bank account, and it really it shows them everything that they need to see? The system automatically shows income and expenditure and with a full breakdown, and they find it simple and user friendly. So is there a way that they can make that, acceptable as a digital system?
A very good question. And one I probably should have touched on it in the nature of the presentation. The problem was trying to condense it and cover all the key aspects. Yes, there's a thing called bridging software, and bridging software is something that is available to extract information from the likes of Excel and can be then transferred into a digital format acceptable to HMRC. So there is digital software that's available. Now, I've never seen it or accessed it, but I certainly know that it's available and it's out there. And they might even be listed as well on the HMRC website. So typically, what would happen is that you would sign up with these digital software companies who have this bridging software, and they would then link in with your spreadsheets, and they would take the information from that to put it into the tax return. If the person who's asked the question is getting great information from what they've got, it may well be that'll be all they'll need to do. They probably will have to pay anyway for the bridging software to allow that to be translated into a digital format acceptable to HMRC. But yes, it is an option, and something that some people who just got Excel would consider. If they've got a sophisticated Excel bookkeeping system that they have, they're probably one of very few. Most people's a lot more basic and just transactional. So if they've done that, very good. They're probably quite proficient in Excel if they've developed something as good as that. So yes, it is possible to have a bridging software application that would allow you to use your system, and it will extract the data from them and put it into a format suitable for HMRC.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, everybody who's joined us today, for all that engagement. Lovely to have so many questions and be able to put Tony on the spot like that. And thank you to so many of you for staying on. I know we've run a little bit over, but I think it was worth it to get some of those specific answers. I had planned to do a little bit of a plug for some of our upcoming events. So instead, I'll just say, go to tourismni.com/TNI events. We have a few webinars coming up this week, next week, and over the next month. So please do have a look there and see if there's anything coming up that would be of interest to you. But I'll not go through all the details here. And just a reminder that we've recorded today's session, and we'll also be uploading the resources that Tony mentioned alongside the recording from today, and a PDF of all the slides that were on screen today, so you can look at those in at your leisure. And if you didn't get a chance to submit your question here today, drop me an email at industry.development@tourismni.com. That's industry.development@tourismni.com, and I'll be happy to pick up directly with Tony as well, and we'll aim to come back to as many of you as possible on any questions that you've had. So thank you so much to everyone who's joined us. Thank you so much, Tony, and thank you also to Eventful and all the guys behind the scenes that have kept everything running for us. So thank you so much, and hopefully see you again at some of the next webinars coming up. Thanks so much. See you soon.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.